special tape. In fact, it's a very special tape. We're going to look at all of the leg, foot, stepping stances, all the leg work of the Yang style Tai Chi system. And then we're going to look at all the different ways that energy is expressed with the hands. I've been doing Tai Chi and studying Tai Chi for well over 3 decades, and I've never seen this all put together before. So this is a great opportunity for us to put down all of the work that the legs do in Tai Chi and the hands. So this is one that I think if you have a tape player, I highly recommend you taping this one because it's going to be a good one. I have a special guest. Rose Soini is going to be helping me as we go through looking at all of the hands and feet movements and seeing how all the various stances are applied in the form, in the Yang style form. Now, the legs are, I would say, the most important element of your Tai Chi practice. The hands are very beautiful in the Tai Chi system, the various ways that energy is expressed through the hands. But it must start with the legs. The proper stance is of utmost importance. So I really want you to be careful. Examine what you're doing with your legs, with your various stances, and do it periodically, year by year. Check them and go back and forth and check your stances and making sure that everything is as it should be, because there's a tendency for the leg work to get a little sloppy. So please pay close attention as we go through all of these stances. Okay, so Rose, if you would come out and join me, please. Please. Greetings, greetings, greetings. Okay, so Rose has been doing Tai Chi with me about 5 years or so, and she has a very good sense of how all this should be, so I'm glad to have her here. Okay, now the first, if you could see, I have drawn on the ground, I don't know if you can see this here, which is called a square. And this is a stance square. And how it's derived is, if you would stand, say stand back, just right next to it. Okay, what I've done here is I've taken tape, right, Rose has started with a shoulder width stance. And out from the center of her foot, I've taken a masking tape and laid one here and one here. Then she stood sideways to it in her same shoulder width stance, and I took 2 pieces of tape out here. So now we have a square that is basically Rose's shoulder width. Now I highly recommend you doing this at home. It's very important because you want to see visually that you are not narrowing the stance, that you're keeping this shoulder width stance. A wide shoulder width base of support is very, very important. Now, we could talk just a little bit about if you put your feet together. Now, this is called the stance of movement. You see, Rose can move in any direction without shifting her weight. You know, she can step forward, she can step back without any delay. This is the movement of a stance of movement. But she has not much stability. It's a very narrow base of support. So if you don't let me push you over, right? So if she tries to resist, there is no base of support. Okay? Now, if she takes a really, really wide, really, really wide, like karate or something. Now, This is what's called the base of power, stance of power. It's very strong. You know, it's like a pyramid. It's a very strong, solid structure. But now if you were to attempt step ahead with your right foot, you see how long it takes her to move. See, she has to shift the weight all the way over to the left before you can release this foot. So this foot being stable is very slow. So in Tai Chi, what we do is that we compromise with this shoulder width stance. This way, she's got a pretty good base of support, and when she goes to step forward, there's just a small delay as she shifts the weight. Okay? So in most all Tai Chi systems, and certainly in the Yang style, we use this shoulder width. Now you'll see many people who are demonstrating, and particularly younger teachers, using very long stances. Well, it looks good in a demonstration, but it's not very good as when you do martial arts. It's too slow for movement. And Tai Chi being an art where you're close into somebody, where we're here working, you want to be able to move fairly quickly. So that's why we use the shoulder width. It's a bit of a compromise. Okay? So now we've drawn her square. So Wu Chi stance. She puts her feet on her instep, goes to the intersection. Not the toe and not the heel, but the instep is right over the intersection. So her weight is falling down in there. Now, Wu Chi stance is sort of the basic relaxed stance. Wu Chi means nothing, or relaxation, or emptiness. So here, her feet are shoulder width, the toes are facing straight, the knees are soft, the pelvis is slightly tucked under, which makes her spine nice and straight. The top of the head is as if lifting from above. The chest and shoulders are relaxed down, and the arms are just hanging. We want the center of gravity and the weight to be falling down right in the center of the stance. Then she can have complete relaxation. If she shifts her weight, leave your stance, but she shifts her weight on one side. Now, one side is empty and a little more relaxing. This one has more tension because it's holding most of the weight of the body. So we want to come to the center, and then the weight can just fall naturally and be divided between the two. This is what's called Wu Chi stance, and it is only used really once in the form is when you're starting, and then again when we finish, we come back to Wu Chi. We have a saying, Wu Chi to Tai Chi, Tai Chi to Wu Chi. So Wu Chi means relaxation, emptiness, then we start our Tai Chi form and we go back to emptiness at the end. This is the Wu Chi stance. Okay, the next stance that we're going to talk about is what's called horse riding stance. It's basically the Wu Chi stance, only she's sitting down. She sits until the knees just cover the toes. The knees go in the direction of the toes. The back remains straight. And everything else applies. The head is lifting, but in this stance, the weight is falling down and it's falling into the center of the foot. If she leans slightly forward, the weight shifts into the toes, that creates tension in the back. If she's laying back a little bit, leaning back, the energy moves to the front to try and hold her, and there creates tension. You want to, in your horse riding stance, feel the weight directly fall into the center. Okay? This is called horse riding stance, because you could see, and you always want to be able to bob up and down easily in any of the stances. Okay? So this is what's called horse stance. So we have Wu Chi stance and horse stance. Now, so if you relax a minute. Now, the basic movement of Tai Chi is, if say Rose was my opponent and she's stepping ahead, is in Tai Chi we always are working about this distance to an opponent. We're always in some way or other touching them. Now, when she pressures inward, I sit back. You see? Now, you can see Rose is a little bit leaning. She's a little bit out of her center to try and push me. She doesn't have much more push. At this point, she's easily manipulated. Okay? So, she pushes, I'm back. I am in my strength. She's sort of out of her strength. Now, if I release her a little bit, then I can come out of my leg and push her away. I use the energy generated from my legs. Now, this is what's called bow and sit stance, straight bow and sit stance. As she comes in, I pressure into the back leg. Now, if I lean back at all, you see, she can easily overpower me. So when she comes back, the energy is going into what's called the qua, the hip joint, and the leg. Okay? And then when I move forward, it comes from this hip joint and moves outward. So let's practice this stance. So she takes, her feet are on the intersection, sinks the weight, shift to the left, open the right toe. So you want to put this on the intersection, open. Okay, then she's going to step forward the left foot. Now, if you notice, if you get coming back here, when she steps ahead, she steps so that the intersection is going to, the instep is going to hit the intersection. The tendency is, if you come back, the tendency is when she steps ahead is to step like this, which happens to narrow her stance and make it too narrow. You see? And she's easily thrown off balance. So, when you're back here, you want to make sure that when you step ahead, you arrive at your intersection. Also, when you're stepping ahead, say if I was doing this myself, there's a tendency to fall like doing a natural walking step. We don't do that in Tai Chi. When she steps, the weight sinks into the foot that's holding her weight. Then, and only when she touches down with some part of the foot, will she then shift the weight forward. All of those things are very, very important. She moves ahead until the knee just covers the toe. The body faces straight ahead. The back is straight. This is called left foot bow stance. Left foot bow stance. She then shifts the weight straight back, sitting on this back leg. The front leg straightens out. This is called right foot sit stance. So bow and sit stance, the practice is moving the body weight forward and backward straight. It's sort of like folding a pleat or an accordion. Forward and back, forward and back. Okay. So once again. Then for the practice, say she's done it around 10 times, shift the weight back, lift up the foot, and bring it back to the intersection, and then stand up. Okay, so this bow and sit stance is very important. It's the sort of the most basic of all the Tai Chi movements, and you'll see it basically everywhere. For instance, like in just like we were just demonstrating in the Tai Chi form, push, say from press to push, right? Press to push, things like that. Just anytime. Then if I go into the next movement, single whip, I come straight back, turn, etc. Right? So this forward and backward motion is used quite frequently. Now the other way that we will move, let's say now Rose is again in facing me, and she's pushing me, right? Now, just as I explained, I was able to get out. But now what happens if, say, it's a longer opponent, somebody who's longer or stronger and taller, or she happens to step in a little bit. Now, when she starts to pressure in, okay, no, okay. So now I'm as far back as I possibly can be, and she still has more power, so she can still push. So, what I need to do at this point then is, as she's pushing, I turn. and her energy is what we call neutralized. It's neutralized off to the side. Okay, so this is what we call turning bow and sit stance. And you'll see it in, like in ward off, the first movement. Say if we could even, you see, we step, and then we turn as we move forward. Now I would say this is more common. You see, and I hear the next right push upward. We turn as we move forward. We turn always, okay? So that's turning, and you would practice it the same way. So once again, she's on the corner. She steps, lowers the weight, right? Turn out, stepping forward, and going forward. So in this case, as she comes back, she turns. The front leg straightens out. She's sitting on the back leg. The whole torso is turning. And again, turning as you go back. The tendency is to, one, come back and then turn, or turn and then go forward. Those are both errors. You want to turn as you're moving. Turn as you're, sort of like having my own doll here, isn't it? This is nice. Turn as you move. Turn as you move. This is what's called turning bow and sit, right? And it's basically everywhere. All right. Now the last of the stances that we use is called empty step, or ding bow stance. Empty step. Now there's two empty steps. One is ding bow on toe, and one is ding bow on heel. Now, ding bow on toe is probably the most common of all the stances. For instance, if Rose and I were facing off and we were martial artists, basically, yeah, we are martial artists, but basically the weight is on the back foot, the front toe just touches down, and if we were moving around, you see, you keep your strong side back. This toe, I can kick her. This is here. She tries to kick me. I can block, you see, or I can step in quickly, you see. This is called empty step on toe. This toe is free to move. Right? It's a balance. A lot of times if we do movements, for instance, where I'm standing on like stork spreads its wings, she's coming in here, I'll touch my toe for balance so that I can be doing things, but I'm not firmly committed to a foot step. This way I can then kick her or do other things at the end of this movement. Okay, so that's what we call ding bow stance on toe, or empty step on toe. The other empty step is empty step on heel, which is actually, it's a foot kick down, and we'll be talking about that in the kicking section. But so this is empty step. There's no weight. I don't shift any weight forward. Okay, so in order to practice these correctly, the feet go to the center of your back line. The toes, the instep is on the back line. The heels are together. The toes are out at a 45-degree angle. She then lowers her weight, and empty step on toe. The toe just touches the intersection. The heel is just slightly off the ground. The leg is relaxed. Okay, so it's relaxed. Then she brings it back and steps out the other foot. The toe touches down and back, right? Again, so in. So you don't want to move your center while this is happening. The toe is just touching out. So this develops strength and balance while you're doing this movement, okay? So that's what we call ding bow stance on toe. The next is ding bow stance on heel. So you start out in the same way, only this time it's as if she was going to take a step, but the toe didn't get placed down. The toe faces straight ahead. The toe is just relaxed. The leg is relaxed, and the toe is just a little off the ground. But it's important that it face straight ahead here. Okay, and back, and out. You see, she could then put the foot down and move right into bow stance, but it's empty step. Okay, and back. So this empty step, you don't want to shift any of the weight at all while you're doing this. You want to keep your weight down. This is very good practice for balance and strength. So we'll use this that we use this quite often. And you want to think about, when you're doing this practice, that it is a foot kick. So when you're stepping, you sort of lift and you kind of press down a little bit. Even though you're not going to put any weight on it, it's rather than just swinging it forward, you lift and step down and back, and lift and step down and back. So that's what we call dingbo stance on heel. And it's many, many places, things where we're going to do a foot stepping, like in raise hands. For instance, I come back and close like this, raise hands, play the fiddle, come up. Doing this, for instance, if she grabs my hand, you see from the bottom, you see, and I come up, and as I put an arm bar on her, I would step down on her. All right. Okay. So those are all of what we call the foot stances. So a wu chi, horse stance, bow and sit, turning bow and sit, and empty stance, ding bow on heel and toe. Okay? Very good. The next section that we're going to talk about is the stepping section. So now we've learned to be in one place. Now we want to start to move around. Tai Chi is a moving art. So there's many different ways in which we move the body. The most easy, common, I would say, is what's called a simple step. So if you would watch this kind of thing, so back from, for instance, from left brush knee, you have the weight on one foot and then you just step the other foot. I'm not moving from my base, I'm just replacing the front foot and changing my direction a little bit. It's what we call a simple step. I'm not changing which side is forward, it's just putting the foot down. For instance, as an application, this is what we call left brush knee. Say the opponent is punching inward. Well, I neutralize, I make a little step, and then that gives me a place to release my power, too. You see? It happens quite frequently through the form. It's just a very simple forward movement. And it's basically, you're going in, if you had your square, you're going from your corner, right, stepping to your other corner. Right? That's what we call the simple step.